All right. Welcome everyone to another NPM Open RFC call. So I'm your host today. Our usual host, Darcy, is now well-deserved PTO. So going to be leading the call today. So yeah, let's start with today's agenda. And usually first things we do is housekeeping, just introductions and making some announcements. So to start with, I'd like to remind everyone that this call and all the interactions with the NPM Open RFC are under our code of conduct. So if you haven't yet, please take some time to go check it out in our website. Oh, yes, and thanks, Isaac. I see Isaac posted the Markdown document for this meeting. So usually we take notes who attended, and the agenda is there, so you can follow along. So yes, let me also start with some announcements from this week. So we have shipped 2 versions of NPM this week, another patch release for V6, just some small bug fixes and dependency updates, but also a new version of the NPM 7 beta. So yay. If you haven't tried it out yet, please go ahead, give it a try. Let us know if you find any bugs. It's just go into our GitHub and you can post an issue there to let us know. So it's very appreciated if anyone wants to give it a try.
I love the optimism if you find any bugs.
Because most likely you won't. No,
it's beta software. You will find bugs, and
yes.
Please let us know. We want to know about them.
I'm using it and it's going great. My favorite thing is when I npm install --save, if it's already in my dev, it moves it to my prod dependencies.
Ooh, that's not what it should
That
do.
was already the case, I think, in the 6er release.
I'm fairly confident it was not, because I have tried this a bunch of times before and been like,
I actually tried this in one of the 6s and it happened as well. So
you're supposed to have to do save prod to force it to move, as I recall.
Yeah, that actually does sound like a bug.
Well,
that would be very bad.
The user experience thing, it seems more expected to me if I --save, because normally that would put it in prod anyway. Anyway, I don't want to distract the conversation.
Yeah.
So a couple of days, and it did something that I always thought was unexpected before. It did it the way I expect it now, even if it's a bug.
Yeah,
the unfortunate news is, now that you've mentioned it, we'll probably fix it.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing that it does very nicely is it doesn't alphabetize your package JSON. So it used to sort when you did an install your dependency list, which for a diff was actually problematic, because then suddenly, like if somebody else had done some manual moving things around for some reason, and then you installed, it would actually mark the entire block as a change in the diff.
Right.
And now it appends on the bottom, which also I think is a great user experience, because now the diff actually just shows, oh, you added one on the bottom. Great, even if your teammate decided to go and reorder them. So.
All right, maybe we'll have a section for NPM 7 bug reports at the end. But let me finish the introduction first.
I don't. These aren't bug reports. These are great things.
Yeah.
It's so rare that you get a report of something that is not working but as designed, and it comes along with, and it's so wonderful that you changed this.
Yeah, it's better user experience.
I guess this is the call for that, though, but we should probably get into the intros and agenda.
Yeah, let me just wrap up the intros. So I was noticing we have a lot of new folks today. So if folks want to introduce themselves, even the recurrent ones, so that the new folks can also get to know you. So I'm going to start. I'm Rui Adorno. I'm a member of the NPM team at GitHub. And we're working on the CLI. So if let me just start calling names so if we're not lost. And if you just want to say your name and anything, it can be the reason why you're here or just where you work. It is great. So Christian, want to start?
Christian, you there?
Oh, sorry. That was a very good sign of the German internet, because it's always cutting out in the very important pieces. Yeah, sorry. I didn't hear you say my name. Sorry about that. So yeah, my name is Christian. I work as an IT consultant in Germany, which means that I usually just write and design and consult on big web application project, and I use NPM on a daily basis. And yeah, I just started contributing one RFC, and yeah, I'm still stuck with that one. However, as I said last time, I'm not offended by that. I just know it takes time.
No, it's great. Thank you. So Mark, want to go next?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Mark Dodson. I'm a developer for Sonatype. For those who don't know Sonatype, we do the products Nexus Repository Manager, Nexus Lifecycle, and so on and so forth. There's an RFC raised by one of my colleagues, which is what the discussion is about today. So I've just raised a PR to sort of demonstrate that RFC and what that might mean and so on. See if we can take it further.
Awesome. Yeah, okay. Isaac?
Yep, I'm Isaac. Also work on the CLI here at GitHub. Been doing NPM for a long time.
All right. So next up, Jason.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jason. I'm a student, master's student in West Virginia University. We created an MR for one of our classes to add some security into the pipeline of NPM, and was invited to this meeting to talk about it. So I'm here with the rest of my school group here.
Awesome. All right.
Jason
Sorry.
as well?
Yes, the other Jason. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So I'm the other Jason from the WVU graduate group. I'm a software engineer at a contracting company called Leidos. Mostly do full stack web development there. We briefly have used NPM there for various projects. We normally focus more on a Spring, with Spring MVC and stuff, but package management's an issue we've been dealing with some of our software projects as of late. So NPM something we've been exploring, but yeah. So.
Cool. Right, Lucas?
Yeah, hi. I'm Lucas. I work at GitHub too, usually on the NPM registry side, but I have an Open RFC for the CLI, which is why I'm here today.
All right, Miles.
Hello, I'm Miles. I'm a product manager at GitHub, working really closely with the NPM team. I'm also one of the maintainers of Node.js, and I do standards work at TC39. I care a little bit too much about modules.
Awesome. Yeah, Wes, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Wes. I work at Netflix. I work on our engineering tools and services team, which does a lot with NPM. So we're doing, a bunch of tooling, and I've been coming to these meetings, I think, since they started. So they're great. Welcome, everyone.
Awesome. Anthony?
Yeah, I'm also a part of the WVU group. I'm getting my master's at WVU. I work as a software engineer at a company in Northeast Ohio called Foundation Software. We do construction accounting software, and I mostly do full stack development there.
Cool. Jordan?
Hey, let's see. I maintain a lot of packages. I work with TC39 and a bunch of stuff with Node, and been on these meetings a while. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jordan is definitely one of the recurrent ones here. Tierney, want to go next?
Yeah, Tierney Siren. I'm a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft working on open source engineering. I do Node, Electron, OpenJS Foundation, TC39, and a bunch of other stuff.
Awesome. Bradley?
Sure, I'm Bradley.
Did Bradley cut out for anyone else?
Oops, yes. I think
Okay.
he cut out. Can you hear us, Brad? Or if not, let's maybe go with Michael. I think we might have lost Brad.
I'm Michael McClendon. I'm the last member of the WVU group. I'm a software engineer at KeyBank and use NPM pretty regularly on a daily basis.
Awesome. All right. So that's great. It's been a long time since we made a round of introductions, so I think it was worth the time. So, all right, let's go to the agenda. But I mean, at the same time, as if Isaac or and Wes want to go back to maybe discussing any NPM 7 UX change prior to the regular agenda.
I think we can hold off until we have a, or maybe I could invite Wes to write an RFC to formalize some of those unintended feature improvements.
Yeah.
Sure, I should probably explore, because this was just very first glance. Like I think I've ran npm install maybe 6 times with the new beta, so I could be noticing things that if I dig deeper, I'm actually was just doing it wrong or something. So
or you come to regret them.
Yeah, true, could be.
All right, so let's go to the first item in the regular agenda. It's going to be the overrides RFC from Isaac.
Yeah, so not too much motion on this, not too much to report. The discussion is kind of, also sort of just been where we left it quite some time ago, the last time we discussed it in one of these calls. So I think the only real thing holding it back is that we would like to at least take kind of a first pass at implementation to make sure we're not getting ourselves into something really awful before ratifying the RFC. But otherwise, it's pretty much ready to go. If anybody has any comments on it, then kind of, I would say speak now or forever hold your peace. But there is probably actually going to be some more time before we ever get to actually implementing this.
I have a question. I don't remember where we landed on this. Being able to specify an external source for your overrides, did we say that that's just not going to land or never going to land, or maybe some future edition? Like, what was the decision? So I think,
yeah, we did touch on this very briefly, I believe, in the last call, or maybe it was just in my head. When we were talking about the parent package concept. So, having a specifier and saying I inherit my package JSON from the manifest at this particular, name at version or range or whatever. If we do that, we can just add overrides as one of the things that can be inherited.
I'm very glad you said that, because I did not relate those two things, and I think I must have missed that in the last call. So awesome. Yeah, that would be very helpful for some initiatives that I'm working on. So
cool.
Great.
Yeah, otherwise we can move on. I don't think there's too much more to discuss there.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, the next item is the RFC from Orca, but I see that he's not in the call today. But types info, I checked it out real quick. I see there is a PR from Orca in the read package JSON repo. Have you had the time to look up at it, Isaac?
I have not. We've been pretty heads down with V7.
Yeah. So I guess you can also wait maybe for the next meeting, see if Orta is back, right? Oh, and thanks to whoever is taking notes. Yes, I do need someone to keep up the notes there. Thank you. All right, so let's move on with the agenda. There is the RFC. No, it's not actually an RFC. It's one of the issues in the CLI repo that got flagged for discussion, which is the NPM Audit app ID.
Yeah, that one is what I wanted to talk about? That one's me, just in case you didn't link my name to the
right.
the
Yes.
tag.
No. Yes. Sorry about that. I just missed the name. Yes. If you want to speak up to this, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure how you want me to lead this. I've never been in one of these meetings before. Do you want to? How do you go about doing these?
Yeah, usually it's just explaining the idea, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so I mean, like I said in the introduction, it was originally a colleague of mine that introduced this. So I mean, I can demonstrate it in a second if you like as well. But fundamentally, what we have when we do an NPM audit, we can redirect that audit to go through our repository manager and also our lifecycle, which does policy evaluation. So we actually take it a slightly different level. So rather than just reporting vulnerabilities like NPM audit does, we can do policy, which is on a per application basis. So it's not an overarching, this dependency is vulnerable. It can be tailored to each individual application. So the idea basically being we want to try and put some application ID, something that identifies the application and the application identifier against our product. So when somebody does an NPM audit, the audit will be based against the application specifically, which might have some tailored policy evaluation, basically. I can quickly demonstrate what I've got so far, if that would help maybe explain it a little bit better.
Wes, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, sure. So I've been thinking a little bit about this, and I wonder if there isn't value in just sending the original package JSON along with the package lock in the audit, because there's more to it than just the identifier, whatever you might think of that. I think that audit could provide some extra value on other things too. So I'm writing some tooling that's going to do this out of band, right? So like I want to do like linting on certain configurations, right? So if you have this package and this, and you're missing an NPM script for it, like say you wanted React scripts and somebody accidentally deletes one of the React scripts, like it would be reasonable to say like, hey, you set up, create React app, but then like somebody must have deleted one of the important lifecycle scripts to run it. Maybe do you want to just add that back? Stuff like that, where it's tangentially related, but and also might not be something that NPM and the public registry wants to provide. For your case, providing another registry proxy, there's a lot of added value you could have there. We also run a registry proxy, and I'm going to be doing stuff in the client side where we're already doing the quick audit. What if I could just like throw back a bunch of extra stuff in the quick audit, which would mean I don't have to maintain a bunch of extra tooling around that phase. Where if NPM itself just packaged up the whole package JSON, I could actually do that server side. Anyway, that was just one idea that I had related to this.
Yeah, I mean, I did actually take it. I mean, I actually listened to the recording from last time, and it was mentioned. It'd be useful to make it generic. So I didn't go with send the whole package JSON across, but what I did, I added a metadata object to the package .json, and it's the content of the metadata object that gets sent. So it's kind of generic in that way. So you could just add extra key value pairs or whatever you want to do to that metadata object, and that will be sent in the headers, basically.
Right. And I see, Isaac, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so I want to just kind of put this in context of some of the changes with NPM audit in v7 for performance, both on server-side performance as well as client-side performance and correctness improvements. So NPM v6 sends effectively the entire package lock JSON file. It does some redacting of a bunch of things, and actually that can sometimes cause problems. For example, if you depend on a Git fork, it will redact the name and version of the thing that's in the package lock JSON tree, which makes it appear to be an invalid tree because now one of your deps is no longer met, right? Instead of depending on, tap at my tap fork, it's depending on this, opaque UID string. So we got rid of that, and as well, the audit response that the CLI sends up, what it expects from the registry is the full list of like remediation actions. Where we ran into with NPM 7, one of the problems we ran into is that a lot of those remediation actions are very sort of NPM 6 tree specific. And so they didn't actually make much sense because we have different algorithms that we're using, improved algorithms that we're using for tree reification and for dep updates. So we ended up having to do all of these remediations client side anyway, and so all we ever send is the quick audit, even when you run npm audit or npm audit fix. We took that a step further and realized, well, the data that we're returning from the audit endpoint, we throw away most of it, right? It actually, if you look at the response data, it actually includes the full markdown text of every advisory, and the impact of that made it really challenging to. It makes it really challenging as well as having to do all of the remediation calculation server side. Makes it very challenging to make that web service very performant. It's hard to cache. It requires a lot of computation. There's some cases where you can totally send it into a tailspin. And just, basically that's why the audit service every once in a while just starts returning 503s. So where we're moving to is a much more streamlined approach where effectively the thing that we send up is just an object that has the key is a package name and the value is an array of all the versions that show up in your tree rather than the full tree structure. And the response that we get from the server side is just an object where the key is a package name and the value is an array of some sort of minified advisory bits. So each advisory object just contains the ID, the affected range, the URL, and the severity level. And then on the client, we actually calculate all of the remediations and all of the kind of meta vulnerabilities, like foo is effectively vulnerable because it depends on strictly vulnerable versions of bar, and so on. And that's how we can actually do a more kind of tightened up output. And also can now remediate and fix entire classes of problems that previously NPM Audit would just kind of throw its hands up and say, this requires manual review. What this means for the context of this conversation is, yes, we can absolutely throw a metadata object in there, but it is going to have some performance impacts and get us back into that direction of sending a lot more data than we strictly need for the operation that we're doing. So Wes, for some of your applications of you depend on React scripts, but your prepare script is gone, like somebody probably broke that. I would almost push to just do that, like you're doing it out of band. I would push to just do it out of band, right? Like have it look at the source code in Git or whatever and run its calculations there. Sending an app ID, we can do in a header, and it's a very small identifier. And so if you can just kind of link that and save that somewhere in the repo, it doesn't kind of blow up the data that we need to send back and forth. But now all that being said, the other thing is if we wanted to start using these advisories for like general purpose, app specific type stuff, not just ignore this advisory, don't ignore this one, or this should actually be considered critical rather than low because we happen to be hitting that case or whatever. Using it for things like, this requires that you have a script or, use it in a particular way. It's not really set up for that. We sort of took the thing that we're actually using it for and optimized for that use case because continuing to scale out this service is just kind of ridiculous. In its
So I
current
completely
state.
agree. I completely agree that y'all maintaining that service at scale is bad. And I think that there are a ton of reasons why moving to alternate tooling that can hook better into NPM for this would be phenomenal. So I am all for that if we go that route. Today, we don't even offer that either. So like I have to do it fully out of band, which is ask my users to install my package and run my package in all of these scripts, which adds overhead. It's not bad overhead. It's just like React scripts, for example, right? Where like what I'm doing is I'm basically saying, you go and run npm install, my package, and it's going to then go right to your package JSON, a pre-install script. And that pre-install script is going to call my package, which is fine, but it'd be a lot nicer if when I installed, I could have something that just did that, right, in the background. Like the presence of the package made it so, or the presence of a marker file somewhere, or a configuration value, right, just said, hey, when you, without any further interaction for the end user, when you run npm install, you're going to get all of these nice features, right, that I've provided for you via my package without you having to see it in. If you look at some of these script blocks, add like 4 more, like that's not a great end user experience. And if NPM had a better story around these things that are very common in the ecosystem, it would absolutely.
Wes is getting.
Yeah, I think we lost Wes.
Unless he's just pausing for very dramatic effect.
Oh. Welcome back. Yeah, so I
sorry.
No,
I don't know where I dropped. I won't repeat it.
I think to your core point, like that absolutely makes sense. I don't think this is the particular vector to add that kind of functionality, but I think it's valuable, and I think it's something we should absolutely explore. And we hit that ourselves, right? The npm client itself has a pretty long script block, and some of our internal apps are just kind of absurd. For the purposes of like audit app ID, I think just sending it as a header and letting the server sort of use that or ignore it as it wishes is kind of the best thing for our users. There's really no obstacle that I can see to ratifying and implementing this particular RFC. It's just sort of typing.
So just to make sure I understand, so you're wanting it to be focused more on an app ID, or you're quite happy with the approach I've taken to have a generic block that gets sent in the header?
Either one, really. I haven't fully explored it, and when we kind of get to that in the development agenda, I'm sure when we get down to that kind of point in the backlog, we may have more feedback. But I think either one is probably fine. It's sort of a bike shed about whether it's like what the actual spelling of the header and the position of it is. Putting it in the body of the request is not ideal because it increases it makes it a little bit more challenging for us to just cache the responses that we give.
Yeah, so at the moment it is only in the header. It's not in the body of the text that gets sent.
So maybe it's better to follow up in the already existing RFC, the one for the header FID.
So to modify that RFC to specify a generic header rather than the being specific.
Or
right, rather than put it in the metadata of the body.
Yeah, and continue. I mean, as a commenting that RFC and following up because it's from a different author, right? It's not from you, Mark.
Correct. It's colleague within the same company, but yeah.
Okay. so you can definitely sync. And
Sure.
but yeah, maybe just follow up with a PR a comment there, and then maybe you can rewrite. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we don't usually hang too much on ceremony when it comes to actually like implementing and ratifying RFCs. The purpose is to get a good final product. So, you know, if that's on us to edit it before we kind of move it into the accepted folder or implemented folder, then like don't feel like you need to file all the proper forms.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, I can go on to that this week, and yeah, I'll get a PR submitted against the RFC.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's move on to the next item over here. It is from, I think it is a pull request. I'm not sure it's ready or it's just a draft, but it's a pull request in the CLI, I think proposing a new security pipeline. I know, Jason, we added this item to the agenda so that you can maybe speak up to it. Yeah, I would like to understand more. I just look quickly at it. I'm not entirely sure what is adding. So if you want to explain it.
Sure, I can explain it a little bit. Basically, this is coming from a school project. Basically, we were looking at the evolution of DevOps into including security, so DevSecureOps. And in doing that, we decided to look at the NPM project itself, because we all typically use it, if not daily, almost daily each. So we looked at what the existing pipeline was, and what tools were available that could help us add some security into it. So we added the NPM audit into the actual pipeline, using NPM itself to do an audit in the pipeline, just to make sure that there wasn't any known issues within the stuff that or the packages that you guys were using. So we've actually broke it up into separate ones. We're doing a production run at a lower end of the, I think I did it on moderate or low before it to fail. Then when on the dev ones, I moved it up to high. That we can talk about, you know, if we still want to do it on what's the right level there. I did it at those levels because that, to get the pipeline to pass when I was writing it, it had to be at those levels. We also looked at different tools. One we added in there was Towley, which is not necessarily a security one, but it is a static analyzer to make sure that the code is pretty dry, so that if there is a security issue, you only have to make it change in one spot. So we added that in there, and surprisingly or not, there was no issues found in the Towley thing, which was, I think, great. Looks like a pretty dry code. Then we also added a Dependabot in there, which Dependabot, I don't know if you guys have looked at or used it. It'll actually create MRs on individual packages within the JSON to keep those updated. That one is in there, again, up for discussion on if we even would want to use the Dependabot. But that's basically where that came from.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that
so
sounds good.
I mean, these are all kind of changes to the just to sort of the NPM project, not really like the NPM product that we're shipping. Am I understanding that right?
It's in the pipeline itself. So whenever you create an MR, it would run these NPM audit on it and fail or pass the pipeline depending on what the audit says or what Towley would come back with.
Right. But this is when you create a pull request on like npm/CLI.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think we had talked about moving to Dependabot. We do use it on a handful of other repos within the NPM project, and obviously it's used very widely at GitHub. I think the pushback that we had for doing it right now is that we actually do have like a bunch of known things that we need to go through and either yank out or update. But I think once we get to a more sort of stable state, it'll make sense. Like right now we have a bunch of known advisories that we just can't fix without sort of replacing a module or updating something deep in the bowels of Node.js.
Yeah, I did notice that one because I have it running on a CLI fork of mine, and it was creating a major update packages from like 3 to version 8, which it's kind of scary.
Yeah. So in the release / beta 7, I don't know if that's where you had based this PR originally, but oh no, okay, so this is based on latest. Yeah, latest is about to be moved to a kind of deprecated legacy, not deprecated, but a legacy kind of state, and once v7 goes to GA. So I would actually recommend doing this against the npm v7. It's release / v7.0.0-beta branch, and it will probably still find some problems, and there's some that we know about, so we may put off merging it until we are not going to get spammed by it unusefully. But then it won't be trying to update from version 3 to 8.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can go ahead and update that.
Cool.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for putting that together. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to be able to follow up with that after the v7 is more stable. So
thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's move on to the next item over here, which is the RFC from Miles on npm run series from parallel. Yeah, Miles, if you maybe want to follow up from last week.
Yeah, honestly, we can probably move on to the next item. We didn't really, we talked about this in the last meeting. I think some good points were brought up. As far as I know, there wasn't any more discussion that happened in the issue around it. So I guess maybe for now, and y'all could tell me the best process here, maybe we could just remove it from the agenda until we have something a little bit more practical or specific to discuss. I know that there were concerns about the scope of this, and that series seemed to be a little bit cleaner than parallel, but there was actually also a bit of aversion to hey, do we want to complicate the script running process of npm at all? So I guess one thing that could be good to know before removing the agenda label, which I think we should do today anyways, is this even something that's really worth poking at for now, or is this something that's much lower priority? I could see a world where we just drop parallel for right now and just look at series. It's an easy way of running multiple things in series in a platform agnostic way. But if folks are kind of feeling maybe this is out of scope, then or just not worth prioritizing right now, maybe it should just be closed. I'm kind of flexible on both, but a fairly full dance card as it is.
Yeah, I'm okay with removing it from the agenda, but we should keep it open. I think it's a worthwhile use case, which has certainly come up a few times over the years. It's not a super pressing thing. Most people end up just sort of writing a shell script and going on with their lives, but it would be nice to have a better kind of a better answer to that.
Yeah, and I see Christian also, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to support that. I mean, you basically said you wanted to, well, how do I put this? Focus on exit codes, especially in parallel. However, I think parallel would even be useful if it would not allow that. For example, if you ran, I don't know, SAS and Webpack at the same time, or the TypeScript compiler at the same time. If you had some kind of watch command, I could definitely see that it would be useful. So even in its simplest form.
Yeah, it just sort of doesn't rise to the urgency level of some other stuff.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, cool.
It's a good idea, but there are a lot of those.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take it out of the agenda for now, so we can leave in the repo. People can comment on it, and we can follow up with the discussions in the issue.
And I guess just like a next step here, just so we have something actionable that we can put in a comment, it kind of feels like a clear next step is maybe like a slightly more robust RFC around what series could look like, and maybe like leave parallel for now and take it
Makes
one
sense
step
to me.
at a time.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. All right. So let's move on to the next item. I see we have here the RFC from Lucas, the ability to skip script hooks.
Yeah, we discussed this last time. I think where we landed was let's just go ahead and do it. Using a different name rather than ignore scripts, but to be something like ignore hooks or ignore pre or whatever just seemed a little more complicated than it was worth. Certainly ignoring the entire command that you just executed, like doing nothing when you run npm test -- ignore scripts, that's not good. And running pre and post test scripts in that case is also confusing. We kind of swung all the way to the other side of the spectrum, and the suggestion in this RFC is perfectly reasonable. So, and very little code and easy to do. So I'm going to move this to accepted today.
Right. I think Lucas had something to say though.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm just happy that the CLI is going to work as I expect it to do soon. So just voicing my agreement and happiness.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's definitely better user experience. All right, Isaac, I see there's another one here. I think it might be ratified already. I'm not sure, but the RFC 21 bring back a subset of npm package environment variables.
Yeah, so this is actually, I believe we ratified it, and it's also, if we didn't, no, I guess we didn't ratify it. We didn't merge the PR. No, we did. No, we merged the implementation. Okay, so the PR still needs to get merged. I will get on that this afternoon. But in the latest npm v7 beta, it's actually implemented as suggested in this change. Essentially what this is there was a, we kind of went too far in reducing package install scripts. Previously, it was absurd. It was putting everything that was anywhere in your package JSON or any configs, and now it just does the non-default configs and a handful of like commonly used package environment variables. So you can still get the name, version, config, engines, main, and bin. But if you have a list of 100 authors in your package.json file, it's not going to dump every single one of them into the environment.
Yep, that's great. At least we did a recap.
Yep.
Or
if you do need everything, then you write a Node script and you parse the JSON, which is a little extra step, but it's not a big extra step for most people.
Yeah, there's an actual way to unblock. Yeah. Great. All right. So next item on the agenda is the npm audit licenses RFC from Tierney.
Yeah.
You wanna?
So similar to Miles, I think the biggest thing I'm looking for right now is just more feedback. I realized that we weren't really capturing the context that was being shared on the meeting we talked about it. So if folks could share some of that context, like their written context of what they'd like to see in it, that'd be great. I've had a couple pieces of feedback of well, no, we should do this or this, with no consensus or agreement really on those. So I'm happy to do whatever, take whatever path we want to take, just getting that feedback so I can in writing, because I'm not going to be able to do it well with vocal feedback. Getting that feedback in writing there would be super helpful.
Yeah,
so
I wonder.
That's the only thing.
Tierney, I wonder if have you interacted with at all the licensee project?
I have not. It has been pointed out to me both when I initially said I was going to do this. A former NPM employee said it might be easy to just use licensee because
Mhm.
that's what npm already uses, and also that was one of the recommendations in the actual thing was to use the licensee format. So
Yeah, I mean the reason why I suggested is like getting into the business of parsing SPDX results and keeping up with all of those updates and everything else. It can be pretty challenging. And I know Kyle Mitchell has been doing that particular type of work for most of his legal career. So
yeah,
could be
I
good to
guess,
kind of align with.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it would be good to align with that data format and maybe take a similar kind of approach, but then just use that as part of the thing that we audit.
Okay. Could you share that feedback in the issue or the PR?
Yep.
That'd be
I
great.
will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I dropped the link in the chat if you want a quick link to it.
Awesome. Yeah. So just, I don't think there's anything else there today, except for just feedback on it would be great.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. So last item in the agenda, it's the RFC for parent package JSON. I know we discussed a lot about it next time. But Christian, yeah, I don't remember well where we landed on it last time.
Actually, I just tried to munch all the feedback into the RFC. So if anyone feels like giving it a read, feel free and leave a comment. I would not have anything more to add to that at the moment, I would think.
I guess a quick question is more of a clarifying question just because I'm not really familiar with this RFC. When you're talking about like parent package JSON, so we're talking about like essentially like symbolic references across the package JSON so like one could consume information from its parent?
Yeah, so the idea basically was to start to inherit dependencies and scripts. And then what I also learned today, probably overrides. Kind of put them all together during npm pack. So that the client basically doesn't even know that the package at one point was inherited for performance reasons.
Okay. I mean, this is not exactly identical, but I was talking to Michael Rogers yesterday about some work that he's doing on like transpilation tools. And one of the things that he's working on is like a tool so you can write your whole project in ESM. And then it creates a dist folder. It copies all of the ESM and everything in there. It transpiles all of that ESM to CommonJS. And then it generates the package JSON that has the references to everything. And then you publish out of that dist folder rather than the root. The reason I mention this is because it seems like what you're talking about is possibly somewhat similar, where like you would have some kind of like post-processing that would like maybe there would be like some way of referencing this stuff in the package JSON, but the package JSON that was in your root wouldn't necessarily be like what goes out with the published assets. And at a high level, I guess like one of the things that I think about here is like, from a platform perspective, how much of it needs like direct platform support versus how much of this is something that can be like a framework or tool sitting on top of the platform. And again, I say that as someone who doesn't really totally understand it. So I guess like to turn all those statements into a question, are there things about the proposal that like explicitly require like first class support by NPM? And then in turn, like how would that affect the integration into like the node runtime and other tools that kind of bootstrap off of the package JSON artifact? Because that's one of the places where I've seen things get a little hairy.
It really should not require any changes to Node or any kind of support from Node. Mm-hmm. The only thing that it would be affecting is the sort of the effective dependencies at overrides and like the things that npm will use to like resolve and manage the package tree. So when we read the root package JSON, we'll have to do this extra processing step if it has a parent. And when we pack or publish the current project, then we'll sort of flatten that that dependency and put the resulting manifest in the package artifact.
Cool.
That said, I think the node start like I think with ESM it actually reads the more info from the package JSON, right? With the exports, is it exports?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exports and imports both like are used in the resolution algorithm for most specifiers now and imply the package boundaries between them and like the interface.
And also type
Yeah.
module.
Yeah. I do wonder if that gets like if you wanted to inherit these keys from a parent project, like how that would work.
Considering
Yeah.
that exports and imports are both like relative paths from a package JSON, that it would seem weird to me to have those be shared.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement on that. I think you know, when we get a little closer to implementing this, we'll have to create kind of a specific list of what gets inherited and what is ignored. And especially since one of the things that we've talked about wanting to inherit is your set of scripts, right? That's sort of the main thing. I have a project, I have a folder full of projects, and I don't want to have to put the same exact, you know, lint and test and pre-publish and everything else script in each one. So we are, and same with dependencies, dev dependencies, and so on. So like, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, this, you know, manifest.proto equals parent manifest. We will have to kind of walk the objects, some specific objects to flatten those things.
Hey, thank you.
Sounds good. Great. Okay. Anything else on this subject?
I just had one question, if I can ask.
Yes, sure.
On this RFC, just curious: is this to be able to inherit any parent, like including dependencies and so on? Just curious as to how far this would go.
At the moment, the idea is just to inherit dependencies and scripts. However, possibly the list could be widened in the future through further RFCs or even while ratifying it. I just like to narrow down the scope a little bit. Otherwise, it just becomes a big balloon that nobody can control.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I was just curious on the dependencies approach, and you know, typically we use scripts that will just parse the package.json to find dependencies and then do things on it. It sounds like we might need to start reconsidering or have ways of getting all dependencies if they're coming from parents as well.
Yeah, so there's certainly going to be some impact for other tooling. I think this is sort of like Node might not be one of those things that has this impact, but you know, other things that look at package JSON to see what you depend on will have to do this this inheritance and implement it as well, or they'll have to just ask NPM for it somehow. So you know, another way that we could potentially get there is to actually, which I just was thinking about the other day, we can actually have a second, like a separate file alongside package.json, which specifies the parentage and anything that I'm overriding from the parent. And then NPM will generate that package.json file, you know, whenever it needs to.
So a flattened version of the whole thing, you mean?
Yeah, so the thing that's actually called spelled, you know, package.json will always be the flattened version at the last time that NPM resolved it. But we'll, you know, anytime we see this sort of package source.json, we'll process it and munge it and write out to package.json.
Cool, thanks.
I see Wes, you have your hand raised.
I'll probably just take it down. The stuff that I think Michael Rogers is working on, I just wanted to point out, I think is like a slightly different scope. And my internet's just being really, really bad, so I'll just there.
You could always just update the note stock and it'll make it as if you had said it.
Yeah, I think Wes, if you want to drop a message in the chat, it's going to be better because we can hear you at all. But Jordan, I see you also have raised your hand.
Yeah, just I wanted to like echo that. I mean, so one of the packages I maintain is resolve, and any changes like this package JSON parent thing would be a massive impact to it. And even if npm provided like a nice API that gave me like a promise for the full package data or something, like that would still be a lot of work to implement, especially because Resolve also has a synchronous API. So it would need to synchronously determine this, and if the parent was over the network, that would be a big problem. So I think I really like the suggestion of saying package JSON is always static, but npm may have a new way to generate it from a different file. That seems like it kind of sidesteps a lot of issues and avoids dumping a massive amount of burden onto the ecosystem.
And for what it's worth, that was more the correlation that I was thinking about in regards to Michael's work. It was more about the idea that like the package JSON that's like at the root of your file is no longer necessarily the package JSON that's getting published, and there might be some dynamicism, but all of that ends up being like resolved prior to publish.
Right. Well, yeah, and even in Michael's solution, like you could still run a dry run of it, and the package JSON that's generated is then still static. It's just in its different place, and that that seems like it preserves an important simplicity.
Great.
Cool. Can you, Jordan? Can you make that suggestion in the RFC? We'll take the discussion there. If not, I can do it. I just tend to sign up for too much.
Yeah, I'll type it in.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, we have just 2 minutes left. If anyone have any announcement, any
last licks?
Yeah. Well, if not, thank you all so much for showing up, and see you all again next week.
See you next week.
Bye.